My name is Ernest Martinez, chairman of the Cesar Chavez Legacy and Educational Foundation. Many of us today have witnessed the tragedy. We've seen it on the news, around the clock, 24/7, on the injustice and the situation with George Floyd up in Minneapolis. And here with me, I have someone that's joined me today. I thought it'd be very timely conversation to have. We have Esmeraldo Pruneda, who is our vice president of the organization, otherwise known as Indio, good friend of the community, a very long-standing reputation, a good reputation for being an advocate in the community, has always been at the forefront of many issues throughout many decades here in San Antonio. Was a right-hand man to my father day in and day out. And so today I thought it'd be very appropriate to begin a conversation. To talk about police brutality, talk about protesting and things that we're seeing on television and seeing on the internet. But there's a right way to protest. There's a right way to demonstrate. And this is an opportunity for education. You know, education is a big part of what we do here at the Cesar Chavez Legacy and Educational Foundation. So again, I think it's very timely to have that conversation. And also for the young people out there that reached out to me over the weekend, that were interested in protesting. And unfortunately this year, due to COVID, we were not able to march for the 24th annual Cesar Chavez March for Justice due to COVID. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to lend our voices still today. And so while we cannot join in public as an organization, we do encourage you to engage in your community. And there's many ways to do that. And today we'll talk about that. You know, here we're standing at the very spot where Dolores Huerta, co-founder of the United Farm Workers, stood here in February, a packed room full of people. And she had a question. She asked a question. She looked into the crowd, Indio, and she said, "Who has the power?" And she led us in the chant of, "We have the power." What kind of power? People power. And it was a very special moment where Dolores looked over to the mayor, looked over to other leaders that were here in the room, and issued a task. Get involved in your community. A lot of issues are at stake right now. There's no question, George Floyd, tragedy. Justice must be carried out. But at the same time, we also have to ensure that we adhere to the principles of people like Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Gandhi. Spent some time over the weekend reading a book that my father left me about Gandhi, and just reflecting on these great men, these individuals, that at the core, they stood for social justice, but believed in carrying out their actions in nonviolent fashion. Peaceful measures. These were great people that accomplished much. But it was through nonviolent measures that allowed them to fulfill those missions. And decades later, many organizations adhering to those principles, and unfortunately, some people not doing that. So I'd like to start off, first, when we saw this past weekend here in San Antonio. We heard the mayor say, "This is our city too." And when we saw something that started off very peaceful unfolded to be something that was very unfortunate, where downtown streets had to be closed off because of violence and bashing windows downtown and things of that nature. That's not San Antonio. That's not who we are. And so with that, I'd like to open up with a conversation. Indio, you've been protesting going back to the 70s. You witnessed so much, but you always made sure that, I remember growing up, you, my father, and many others, the first things that were communicated were, we do things non-violently. Indio, what are your thoughts? Please share what, and it's obvious, it's an injustice, but please share with the audience, our audience, those folks who follow us on Facebook, you know, what you witnessed and what you believe.
The unfortunate injustices is understandable. The frustration of the people is understandable. The taking to the streets to get a message across is understandable. To make a true change, to show strength through peaceful measures is what is not being understood. People are destroying property where people were, now people are going to be out of a job.
We talked about that.
Yes, we talked about it.
You know, one of the things you pointed out was, and you know, we're so tuned in to the images on television, but also the indirect impact, or the direct impact, should I say, when you saw the Target on TV being looted, right? You made a comment earlier. Well, these are workers that go to a job every day that cannot go to a job today at Target. I mean, many other stores, small business owners that are impacted financially. Right? So here we are as a country wanting justice, but then, and it's not the majority, it's a smaller percentage of folks, but there's millions and millions of dollars of damage.
The domino effect that even though there's a handful of people, it's you have the domino effect that one throws a rock and then the other, and then the other, and then it's chaos. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
You were back in 1980. There was an immigrant that was underneath the house. I was only 12 years old when it happened, but I heard the story many times from my father. Santos Coy. Santos Coy was an immigrant who was shot. And so I asked you to share what you remember about that time, and you'll speak about that.
Yeah, your father led a protest against the police injustices back then, and how he was treated. He was caught or cornered underneath a house in El Paso Street, right by Trinity. And instead of waiting him out, the police went in with a police dog, a German Shepherd, and not only did the German Shepherd attack him, but the policeman shot him underneath the house over a hamburger.
Over a hamburger.
Over a hamburger. So the injustices have been with us since our lifetime, for our lifetimes. How we react to make change is the important thing here.
You mentioned something about being at the table, right? And so when we take action for social justice, the injustice that take place in our community, whatever issue that may be, you said earlier that this is a pathway, in a sense, you have a pathway to get a seat at the table. To the young people out there, and to the many thousands that join us every year, we've never had an incident in our march, the Cesar Chavez March for Justice, a beautiful tradition, along with the Dr. Martin Luther King March every year in January. You know, there is a very strong unity among community that comes together every year in the thousands. But you mentioned something about a transformation of police policies that you have seen take place. A lot of credit to, of course, Chief McManus, the first chief of police to march with us back in the early days when the march started. But you talked about policies. Speak on that a little bit and share with your experience.
Yeah, and that's what we meant, what I learned from your father, is that about having a seat, not just having a seat at the table, but having dialogue and having to discuss our issues and having them addressed, which there was a radical change, I would say, a radical change from what we went through in the early years to what we're going through now here in San Antonio, to where we have cooperation with the city. We have cooperation with the chief of police and the sheriff that are willing to sit down and listen to our grievances and address them. Not just listen and blows off, but they're willing to address and change and make changes. And that's the important part of a peaceful disagreement.
I think that's a very important message for the young people out there. Know that we have a leadership in San Antonio, law enforcement from the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, San Antonio Police Department, even our DA's office. Those are the leadership that we have today. We have that opportunity. I heard many stories from my father when he was alive, that in the 70s that was not the case. The 70s was a very difficult time. The police relations with the community was strained. And you know, George Floyd's death is a no doubt a wake-up call for our country, but also a time to remember those that have been lost due to police brutality. We had, I believe, Marquise Jones a few years back here in San Antonio. We got to remember those individuals too. There's other individuals that have been impacted by that. Unfortunately, it's not the police force in general. It's an individual that doesn't adhere to the right policies, the right procedures. And so when I saw the images on television, where not here in San Antonio, of course here in San Antonio, but across the country, where you saw young people breaking the windows of cars on the highways and, you know, challenging the police and getting in their face, and you know that the police are there for us so we can carry out our First Amendment rights. When we march every year, it's a First Amendment procession that we have with the Cesar Chavez March for Justice. And so many messages are heard every year, and I think that now, going forward, we're going to see more conversations. We're going to hear more conversations, we're going to see more actions, and hopefully those actions are going to be peaceful and nonviolent, as they should be. And I think about the young people. My father, when he started this organization, he was very passionate about connecting with young people. And he always wanted to make sure that the young people had a seat at the table. We always hear Irene Chavez, who runs our scholarship fund, we always hear her story on how she was invited to a meeting and she sat at the side of in a restaurant area marked off for a meeting, and Irene took a seat to the side, not at the table, and my dad said, "Irene, come to the table, you have a seat at the table." I want the young people to know that this is your opportunity to have a seat at the table. You know, your elected officials, your chief of police, your sheriff, your leadership, they're there to serve you. They're public servants. They're there to address your concerns. So, India, what advice do you have for the young people right now? They're looking for answers. You know, if you're 17, 18, 19 years old, in your 20s, and you're very upset right now, maybe they don't understand the principles of Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and Gandhi and Martin Luther King. But what would you
and your father.
And my father,
Your
yes.
father took off because we were at, when we were in our younger age, we were the radicals. But we realized, your father realized, the true change comes from open dialogue and having a seat at the table and having discussed our issues. And it's easy to say, yes, I disagree, let's burn it down. The hard part is saying, I disagree, but I have a better idea. This is what we need to do. This are our grievances. And this is what we'd like for the establishment to follow.
Yes, the initial reaction for the young people: burn down that building, break that window, and to us, what we've been taught and what we advocate for is that should be that's not the answer.
Yes.
That is not the answer. The answer is organizing.
Organizing.
The answer is getting other people involved in a peaceful manner, but having those tough conversations. Those tough conversations have to be had, but also going to the table. What is it that can be done to improve? And there's a lot of groups here in San Antonio that have different causes. I think it's time for all of our organizations to come together for a common purpose, common goal. I think we have one today, and we all want our communities to be safe. We all want our communities to be a place where we're not taken to the streets like we saw on television across the country. It's a sad situation.
And on that, Ernest, different organizations have different causes. Today, especially today, what we're going through with the COVID-19 and the injustices that are happening in the street, with the policies from the White House, we're all in this together as the human race, our human cause, because it's going to affect everybody for a long time.
From the national level to the state level to the local level, there are so many issues out there, and unfortunately right now, the important issues rolling into 2020 that were so important, like the census, like getting out the vote. There are so many things that were rolling off coming into 2020, and everything has been sidetracked. Hopefully, we can all come together and recalibrate and refocus, but definitely standing up and lending our voices for the injustice that was witnessed, right? And you made mention earlier something, the image that you got very emotional over when you heard George Floyd crying for his mother. It all comes back to that human element, right? In us as being, we're all human beings. And when you made reference to that, when I saw the video of his crying for his mother, mama, we're all human beings. We're all, no matter what color, no matter what background, where you come from, we're all human beings. My father used to chant, no human being is illegal.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's what we cannot forget, the humanity that brings you to tears. And when you strip your uniform, the police, the president, myself, when we strip ourselves of all labels and worldly goods, we're just humans.
Right.
We all bleed the same. We all breathe the same. It's the inhumanity of what's going on. The rioting, the burning. It's going to affect not just us, but the generations that are following us, are coming after us.
And we're living examples, right? Younger people, those that are 5, 6, 7 years old are seeing these images, and if they see more images of peaceful protesting, that's what we want. And I think San Antonio is not witnessing what you saw in other cities, but unfortunately we saw a little bit of that Saturday. And I want to issue, not challenge, but I want to encourage all of you out there who are join us by the thousands every year at our march and our events. When you see a young person, whether it's your son, daughter, neighbor, someone you go to church with, take an opportunity to share the story of Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, Dr. King, Gandhi,
Jaime
Martinez, my father, yes. Take the opportunity to share the stories of those great individuals. And I think if we plant enough seeds, my dad always made me plant seeds, plant seeds, plant seeds. If we do that enough, we could spread love and peace. And yes, there's always going to be an element of chaos that's there. But we have to tune out that noise and focus on the good of people. And there's a lot of that goes on. There's many leaders in our community. I'm not going to name by name, but there's people out there every day that give their time and their effort to make sure our community is a great place. People that advocate against domestic violence, to immigration reform, you know, to police brutality, and the issues that come to the surface every day in our city. And I'll just echo the words of our mayor. You know, this is our city too. And we're not going to allow, we should not allow anybody to come into our city and wreak havoc against our police, the men and women who suit up to be there to protect us. You know, the small business owner that's on Commerce Street, any businesses that, I mean, again, it's not anywhere near the level that we saw in other cities, but we need to stand up against that as a community.
Yeah, and Ernest, and what I like to say is that what's happening now, I would encourage people to channel that into registering people to vote.
Yes. And
going out to vote, but vote for people that are going to help you in your own situations, not vote against your own interests. Because a lot of people don't vote because whatever, they think that it's not going to help. They think they're all the same, and we're seeing it.
You know, very good point, Indio. You made mention that earlier when we're talking. You know, I try to think, well, voting and, you know, how does this tie into? At the end of the day, we have to vote for an attorney general. We have to vote for, you know, a mayor and a city council to enact those policies and work with our district attorneys. Those are the things that we have a voice for when we vote. So yes, voting is important, but let us all come back to why we had this conversation today, and as to make sure, number one, that we as a community, when we protest or demonstrate, that it's done so in a non-violent manner, peaceful demonstrations. We're doing it for George Floyd. While we're in San Antonio, thousands of miles away, we're all impacted. We've all been impacted. I think I heard somewhere on social media, Chief McManus was on a call with 50 or 60 chief of police across the United States, and every single one of them agreed that that was definitely a wrong situation. You know, it could have been done much better, obviously. And so we can go very deep into conversation today. We just wanted to share a message today, and just reach out to you. Unfortunately, right now, we in the Cesar Chavez Legacy and Educational Foundation are not able to congregate and meet. Otherwise, we'd be out there in the community. We're encouraging everybody to still adhere to the COVID-19 measures and keeping your distance. I think we're 6 feet away here in Indio, but making sure that it's still it's an uneasy place right now where we're at today as a city, as a country. So with that, thank you for tuning in and listening to the entire message here. But Indio, I don't have anything else. Anything you want to add?
No, well, the only thing I have to add is that we're at a junction as to where we're going to lead this country to. And it's very important that we, as a whole, and the city and the country, that we do the right thing. We have compassion, we have empathy, we have to work for justice for all the people that are being abused or killed.
There you have it. From Esmeraldo Pruneda. If you haven't met this man, I encourage you to, when we have an opportunity to congregate again at the center, visit with Esmeraldo. Many years of experience, been to many a protest, demonstration, marching, a lot of good stories for our young people to hear, but also to learn on what the right way to approach a demonstration and a protest. So with that, until hopefully again we can meet sooner than later, God bless everybody. Thank you.